Welcome to True Echo, where every story carries a heartbeat, every betrayal holds a lesson, and every twist reminds us that truth always finds its way to the surface. Today, we bring you a gripping tale of love, deception, and the power of a single voice, a son's warning that saved his father's life. This is not just a story. It's a reminder that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones planning your downfall, and sometimes, the people you least expect are the ones who save you. Let's begin. My name is Malcolm, I'm 37 years old, and this is the story of how my son saved me from the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. It's a story of betrayal, survival, and the kind of truth that doesn't just break you, it remakes you. The night it all started, everything looked perfect on the surface. My consulting firm was about to host its first major investor gala. I had spent months preparing, refining presentations, rehearsing every line, double-checking every detail. This was supposed to be my moment. But behind the tailored suit, the polished smile, and the bright lights of the hotel ballroom, danger was already circling. And it was coming from the one place I never thought it would, my wife, Kesha. We'd been married for 12 years. We had a son, Jaden, who had just turned 10. From the outside, we looked like the dream family, successful husband, beautiful wife, bright and kind son. Friends envied us, neighbors admired us, and my parents never missed a chance to brag about the perfect couple their son had married into. But what none of them knew, what even I refused to see for so long, was that Kesha's smile was a mask. She'd worn it well in the early years. I thought she loved me. I thought she was proud of the sacrifices I made, the nights I stayed late at work, the weekends I picked up side jobs just so she could have the things she dreamed of. I bought her jewelry when we could barely afford groceries. I booked vacations when I was drowning in debt. I even paid for a year of photography lessons, just to see her smile, though that money nearly broke us. But love blinds you. It convinces you that the little things don't matter. That the late-night phone calls are just friends, that the sudden errands are harmless, that the flash of irritation in her eyes when you ask a simple question is just stress. I told myself all of that. I told myself lies. Until Jaden spoke 6 words that froze my heart and changed everything. We were halfway to the hotel, the night of my launch party. Jaden was in the passenger seat, dressed in a little suit Kesha had insisted on buying. He'd been chatting happily all the way there, until suddenly he went quiet. I noticed him fidgeting with his seatbelt, his reflection in the window troubled. "Everything okay, buddy?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice small but steady, he said, "Dad, she set you up." I nearly crashed the car. I pulled over hard, tires screeching, horns blaring from behind. My chest pounded as I turned to him. "What did you just say?" His eyes were wide, full of fear and guilt. "It's a trap, Dad. Mom's planning something bad for tonight. I heard her talking on the phone. With Uncle Darnell." The world tilted around me. My wife. My brother-in-law. Planning something bad. "What exactly did you hear?" I asked, trying to stay calm for his sake. His little hands twisted in his lap. "She said, by the time he gets to the party, it'll be too late. I've sent you the forged documents, just play them on the big projector so his investors will know." She was laughing, Dad. And Uncle Darnell was laughing too. I sat frozen, my pulse hammering in my ears. Forged documents. The projector. My investors. My entire future. And just like that, the perfect life I thought I had built began to collapse. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles whitened, trying to process what my 10-year-old son had just told me. Forged documents. The projector. My investors. It didn't make sense. Why would Kesha want to destroy me? Even if she was having an affair with Darnell, why drag my career into it? Why risk Jaden's future, too? Unless destroying me was the point. I forced myself to breathe, slow and steady, so I wouldn't scare Jaden more than he already was. Buddy, I need you to tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. What exactly did you hear? His voice was trembling, but he pushed through. I was supposed to be asleep, but I woke up to get some water. Mom was in the kitchen. She was on the phone with Uncle Darnell. At first I thought it was just family stuff, but then I heard her say, she said she couldn't wait to watch you fall. She said this was her chance to get everything she deserved. His eyes filled with tears. I didn't understand, but she sounded happy. Like she wanted something bad to happen. My stomach twisted. The woman I'd given everything to, every ounce of work, money, and love I had, was planning to take me down in front of the very people whose trust one needed most. Did she say anything else? I asked gently. Jaden sniffled. She told him not to worry, that she had your passwords, that she saw enough of your files when you worked at home. She said no one would believe you once they saw the documents. And she told him after tonight, everything would be theirs. Everything would be theirs. It wasn't just about humiliation. It was about erasing me, taking everything I'd built and claiming it for themselves. My business, my reputation, maybe even my assets if the forged documents pointed toward embezzlement or fraud. I pulled Jaden into a hug, holding him tightly. You did the right thing by telling me, I whispered. You might have just saved my life. But as I comforted him, my mind was racing. If what he said was true, then my entire future was hanging by a thread. My investors were already gathering. My presentation was minutes away. If those forged documents showed up on the projector before I could stop them, everything I had built would crumble. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and called Jamal, my business partner and closest friend. He answered on the second ring. Malcolm. You on your way? The place is filling up. This is going to be huge, brother. Jamal, listen to me carefully. My voice was tight, urgent. Check the laptop. The one for the presentation. Make sure no new files have been added. Especially financial records. There was a pause. What are you talking about? Just check, please. If Kesha shows up before me, don't let her near the equipment. Don't let anyone but you touch it. You're scaring me, Malcolm. What's going on? I'll explain later. Just trust me. This is life or death for our business. He muttered something under his breath, but I heard him moving quickly. All right, I'm on it. Hurry up. I hung up and started the car again, merging back into traffic. My heart was still pounding, but now there was clarity in my fear. I had a mission: get to the hotel, secure the presentation, and expose whatever Kesha and Darnell had planned. Dad? Jaden's voice was small. Are you mad at me? I glanced at him. His big brown eyes were swimming with guilt, as if telling me the truth had somehow betrayed his mother. No, son. I'm not mad at you. I'm proud of you. You were brave. You told me the truth when it mattered most. That's what good men do. And you, Jaden, are going to be a great man one day. He nodded, but I could see his little hands still trembling in his lap. He was too young to carry a secret like this, too young to be caught in the crossfire of adult betrayal. But life doesn't always wait for us to grow up before it throws us into the fire. As we pulled into the hotel parking lot, I spotted the gleaming glass windows of the ballroom, glowing with warm light. Inside, I could see the silhouettes of people mingling, glasses in hand, laughter and chatter spilling into the night air. These weren't just guests, they were power brokers, investors, potential partners. People who could take Malcolm Consulting Solutions to heights I'd only dreamed of. And also people who could bury me forever if Kesha's plan succeeded. Jamal was waiting at the entrance, his face pale and grim. "We've got a problem," he whispered as soon as I stepped out of the car. "What is it?" "I checked the laptop like you said. There were files added, financial records. They look... Malcolm, they look bad. Really bad. Like you've been siphoning money from client accounts." I felt my knees almost give out. "That's impossible. I would never." "I know. But if these had gone up on that projector during your pitch, every person in that room would have believed you were a fraud." He swallowed hard. "Malcolm, someone wants you destroyed." "Not someone," I corrected bitterly. "My wife." Jamal stared at me, stunned. "Kesha? Are you serious?" Before I could answer, Jaden tugged on my sleeve. "Dad, look." I followed his gaze and froze. Across the room, dressed in an expensive suit and laughing with two of my investors, stood Darnell. Confident. Comfortable. Like he belonged there. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't family, he wasn't staff, he wasn't even part of my professional circle. Yet there he was, shaking hands, sipping wine, planting himself right in the middle of my world. And when his eyes met mine across the room, he smiled, a sly, knowing smile that made my blood run cold. This wasn't just about documents. This was a coup. Kesha would arrive soon, the supportive wife act polished and perfect. Darnell would be here to play the helpful insider, revealing my supposed crimes. And together, they'd strip me of everything. But they had made one fatal mistake. They didn't know I already knew. I stood frozen for a moment, staring at Darnell as if the air between us had turned to ice. His confidence wasn't the casual arrogance of a guest enjoying cocktails, it was the certainty of a man who thought he'd already won. His smirk told me everything. He believed the trap was set, that I was already finished, and that tonight he and Kesha would strip me of everything I had worked for. But he didn't know my son had already cracked their scheme wide open. I leaned down to Jaden. "Stay close to Uncle Marcus when we go inside, okay? Don't leave his side." Marcus was Jamal's older brother, a big, broad-shouldered man who had been a mentor to me when I first started out. If there was one person I trusted with my son's safety, it was him. Jaden nodded solemnly, his little jaw set with a bravery that both broke and inspired me. He shouldn't have to carry this weight, but he was. He had already proven himself stronger than I ever imagined. Inside the ballroom, the hum of polite laughter and clinking glasses felt surreal, like I was stepping onto a stage where everyone else was reading from a script, but I already knew how the final act was supposed to end. Guests smiled, shook my hand, congratulated me on the night, but all I could feel was the clock ticking. Every second brought Kesha closer to arriving, closer to pulling the trigger on the ambush she thought would ruin me. Jamal pulled me aside. "We can still shut this whole thing down. Cancel the presentation, send everyone home, regroup later." I shook my head. "No. If I run, I look guilty. If I stay silent, the rumors will spread anyway. The only way out is through." Jamal searched my face. "Then what's the plan?" I lowered my voice. "We call in help. Remember Detective Terrence from the Financial Crimes Unit? Get him here. And while you're at it, make sure that projector is set to record everything." Jamal's eyes widened. "You want to catch them in the act?" "Exactly." As he slipped away, I scanned the room again. Darnell was still near the bar, laughing with one of my potential investors. Every so often, his eyes flicked toward the entrance, like a man waiting for his partner in crime to arrive. And then, as if on cue, Kesha appeared. She looked flawless, hair perfectly styled, makeup sharp, a black dress I'd once saved 3 months of overtime to buy for our anniversary. She glided into the room with the elegance of a queen entering her court, her smile practiced, her demeanor warm and gracious. She moved easily through the crowd, greeting investors, complimenting wives, embodying the role of supportive spouse. But I saw it now for what it was, theater. Every nod, every laugh, every "so proud of Malcolm" was nothing but performance. She was laying the groundwork, preparing the audience, making sure no one suspected the dagger she was about to slip between my ribs. Our eyes met across the ballroom. She smiled at me, sweet and radiant, as if she were the proudest wife in the world. But beneath that smile, I caught the flicker of something else. Anticipation. The plan was already in motion. "Dad?" Jaden whispered at my side. "Do we tell everyone? Do we stop her?" I put a hand on his shoulder. "Not yet. Timing is everything. Trust me." He nodded, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He was old enough to understand betrayal, but still too young to understand strategy. He just wanted his dad safe. Kesha drifted toward the technical setup, the laptop and projector where my entire career balanced on a knife's edge. But Jamal was already there, standing like a wall, his hand casually resting on the laptop lid. When Kesha leaned in with a playful smile and a question, "Mind if I take a peek?" "I want to make sure I brag about the right numbers." Jamal's expression didn't budge. "Everything's handled," he said flatly. "No need." I watched irritation flash in her eyes before she smoothed it back into a smile. She turned gracefully, as if nothing had happened, and melted back into the crowd. The stage was set. The trap was primed. All I had to do now was step onto it. At precisely 8 o'clock, Jamal tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate the launch of Malcolm Consulting Solutions. It's my honor to introduce the man who made this possible, my friend, my partner, Malcolm Washington." Applause rippled through the room as I walked forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. The projector screen behind me was blank, waiting. The faces in front of me were expectant, curious, eager. And somewhere in that sea of suits and gowns, Kesha and Darnell were poised, ready to strike. I began my presentation, voice steady though my insides felt like fire. 18 months ago, I had a dream, to build a consulting firm that didn't just chase profits, but created real solutions for real businesses. Tonight, I want to share with you what we've built, what we're building, and where we're going. Slide by slide, I moved through the pitch. Market analysis. Revenue growth. Future projections. I spoke with confidence, but my eyes were scanning, watching. Darnell inching closer to the projector. Kesha watching me too intently, her smile sharp, her gaze flicking between me and the screen. Then it happened. As I transitioned to the financial overview, Darnell stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said loudly enough for guests near him to hear. "I think there's an issue with the files." He reached toward the laptop, expecting to trigger the forged documents that would flash on the screen and destroy me. But instead, something else appeared. Not spreadsheets. Not doctored numbers. Video. The ballroom went silent as security camera footage flickered across the giant screen. Grainy but clear enough to recognize the people in it, Kesha and Darnell, sitting at our kitchen table, laughing, touching, whispering. Another clip, the two of them huddled over papers, altering numbers, their voices caught by hidden audio. "By the time he gets to the party, it'll be too late," Kesha's voice rang out, crisp and undeniable. The audience gasped. Murmurs erupted. Heads turned toward her, toward me, toward the screen. Kesha's face went white. What is this?" she stammered, stepping forward. "This isn't real." But it was too late. The damage was done. Her perfect mask had cracked wide open in front of everyone who mattered. Darnell tried to recover, his voice rising. "This is a setup. Malcolm planted this to cover his own crimes." But then Detective Terrence appeared, flashing his badge as he strode into the room. "Not tonight, Mr. Washington. We've been monitoring the evidence all day. This is a sting operation, and you've just implicated yourself." The room erupted into chaos, investors whispering, gasping, moving aside as detectives advanced. Kesha tried to cling to her role, her voice trembling. "This isn't what it looks like. Malcolm, tell them." But I didn't speak. I didn't have to. The screen spoke for me. Detective Andre cuffed Darnell, reading him his rights. Kesha reached out desperately as they moved toward her. "Please. Malcolm, I did it for us. I did it for the family." Her words echoed, hollow and desperate. Even now, she was trying to twist the truth, to rewrite the story in her favor. But no one believed her. Not anymore. As the police led them both away, I stood at the front of the room, my chest heaving. The investors' eyes were on me, waiting for my response. And in that moment, I realized something. This night, which was supposed to end in my ruin, might just be the beginning of something greater. The ballroom was a storm of whispers and stares. Investors huddled in small groups, their voices low, sharp, buzzing with shock. The police had just walked my wife and her lover out of the room in handcuffs. The projector still glowed faintly with frozen images of their betrayal, a silent testimony that none of this was a dream. And there I was, standing at the front, caught between triumph and devastation. I cleared my throat, gripping the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the disruption." My voice was steady, though inside I felt like a man balancing on the edge of a collapsing bridge. As you've seen, tonight revealed something deeply personal, and painful. My wife, along with an accomplice, attempted to sabotage this event and frame me for crimes I did not commit. The murmurs swelled. Faces turned toward me, skeptical, sympathetic, curious. I pushed on. "I want to assure you all that Malcolm Consulting Solutions operates with complete integrity. We welcome any investigation into our accounts, our contracts, and our practices. What you saw on this screen was not the unraveling of our company. It was the exposure of a fraud designed to destroy us." Silence followed. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over, that no one would believe me, that the shadow of scandal would poison every deal, every handshake, every contract I'd ever dreamed of. Then a voice rose from the crowd. "If you can catch something like this in your own home," said Monique Jefferson, one of the major investors I'd courted for months, "then you have the kind of instincts we need in a partner. I believe in your firm." Others nodded, murmuring agreement. Relief washed over me like rain after drought. Instead of sinking me, the betrayal had, ironically, showcased my resilience, my vigilance, my ability to detect deception. The very skills my investors valued most. But while the business survived, my heart felt like glass shards inside my chest. Jaden slipped his hand into mine, his small fingers curling tightly around mine. His voice trembled. "Dad, what's going to happen to Mom?" I knelt down to his level, the room fading around us. "I don't know yet, buddy. But I promise you this, you're safe. And you did the bravest thing I've ever seen. You saved us." He nodded, but his eyes shimmered with confusion and pain. He was only 10. He shouldn't have to bear the weight of his mother's betrayal, the image of her being dragged away in cuffs. When the last investor shook my hand and the last guest left, the ballroom was quiet again, just me, Jaden, and Jamal packing up the remnants of what was supposed to be the most important night of my career. "You pulled it off," Jamal said softly, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "But man. I'm sorry. I know this hurts." I nodded, unable to speak. Hurt didn't even begin to describe it. That night, after dropping Jaden off with Marcus for safety, I went home to an empty house. The silence was suffocating. Every corner of the house whispered of Kesha, the framed photos on the wall, the scent of her perfume still lingering in the bedroom, the black dress hanger empty in the closet. I sat on the edge of the bed and buried my face in my hands. How had it come to this? I thought back to the early days, the long hours I'd worked, the sacrifices I'd made, the endless little gestures to make her happy. I remembered hunting for her grandmother's lost ring for weeks, even though I never found it. I remembered the way she smiled when I surprised her with those photography lessons. I remembered the vacations I scraped every penny to afford. I had given everything. And in return, she had plotted to destroy me. A week later, the investigation confirmed everything. The forged financial records were traced back to Darnell's software. The upload came from our home internet. And deeper digging revealed that Kesha had been draining money from our accounts for months, siphoning off nearly $200,000 in small, undetected increments. She hadn't just planned to ruin me. She'd already been stealing from me long before the night of the gala. The trial was brutal. Prosecutors laid out the evidence: forged documents, audio recordings, financial fraud. The jury saw the footage of Kesha and Darnell whispering and laughing in my kitchen, planning my destruction as casually as planning a dinner menu. Jaden had to testify. That was the hardest part. Watching my 10-year-old son sit in that witness box, his small voice describing the night he overheard his mother plotting against his father, broke me in ways I didn't think possible. He kept glancing at me for reassurance, his little hands trembling. I wanted to rush to him, to scoop him up and tell him he'd never have to do this again. But all I could do was sit there, jaw clenched, fists tight, watching my son be forced into adulthood far too soon. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, I didn't feel triumph. Just emptiness. Kesha was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Darnell got 7. Afterward, I sat Jaden down at the kitchen table. The same table where his mother had once plotted against me. I stared into his young, haunted eyes. Son, I need you to hear me. None of this is your fault. You did the right thing. You saved me. You saved us. And I promise you, no matter what happens, I will never let you face this alone. He nodded, but his voice cracked. Does she hate us? The question sliced deeper than any knife. No, I said finally, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. She lost her way. She made terrible choices. But her mistakes don't change how much I love you. In the months that followed, I threw myself into rebuilding. The business grew stronger, ironically boosted by the scandal. Investors saw me as a man who had survived betrayal and come out stronger. Clients trusted me more, impressed by the integrity I'd shown in exposing fraud even when it came from my own home. But the personal cost was crushing. Every night, the empty side of the bed reminded me of betrayal. Every question Jaden asked about his mother reminded me of the lies. Every smile I forced for him was a mask over the grief gnawing at me. 6 months later, I made a choice. I sold the house where the betrayal had happened. Every room there felt poisoned, haunted by Kesha's laughter and whispers. Jaden and I packed our lives into boxes and moved 3 hours away, to a quieter city where no one knew our story. A fresh start. I thought that would be the end of it. But fate had other plans. One afternoon, while working on a proposal at a coffee shop, I looked up and saw her. Not Kesha, but a woman whose face I couldn't forget, even though I didn't know why. She had warm brown eyes, natural hair pulled back simply, and a smile that seemed to light up the entire room. She was reading a book, occasionally glancing out the window, and something about her felt familiar. I wanted to speak to her, but my heart still bore scars. Was I ready to even try again? I didn't know then that this woman, Kayla, was about to unravel the rest of the truth I thought I already knew. A truth that would change everything I believed about my son, my past, and even my future. The first time I saw her, I thought she was just another stranger in a coffee shop. But something about her presence pulled at me, as though my memory was grasping for a thread it couldn't quite catch. Kayla. I didn't know her name yet, but I knew her eyes. Not because I recognized them in any clear way, but because they stirred something unspoken, a familiarity that wasn't logical. She sat by the window, a half-finished cappuccino cooling beside her, lost in a book. Occasionally she smiled at something on the page, a soft, unguarded smile that lit her whole face. It was the kind of smile I hadn't seen in years, not in my house, not from Kesha. Genuine. I stared too long. She noticed. When our eyes met, I felt caught, like a schoolboy caught passing notes in class. I almost looked away, but instead, I stood and crossed the room. "Excuse me," I said, my voice tentative, careful not to intrude. "That's the new Maya Angelou biography, isn't it?" Her eyes widened, the warmth in them vanishing in an instant. She slammed the book shut, her hands trembling slightly. "Yes," she said quickly, gathering her things. "It's good. Very good. Would you recommend it?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation light. But she was already standing, already halfway to the door. "I'm sorry," she muttered. "I have to go." And just like that, she was gone. I sat there stunned, staring at her abandoned coffee cup, wondering what I had done wrong. Had I scared her? Offended her somehow? Or was I just too broken, too raw to remember how to approach anyone without coming across as desperate? For the next 2 weeks, I couldn't get her out of my mind. That look of recognition, no, not recognition, panic, when she heard my voice. It haunted me. Then one evening, at the grocery store, I saw her again. She was in the produce aisle, carefully inspecting apples. My chest tightened. I almost walked away, but something in me refused. "Kayla," I said softly, though I wasn't sure why I said her name, I didn't know it yet. She turned, startled. This time, her face went pale. Her lips parted, but no words came. "I'm sorry," I said quickly, raising my hand slightly in surrender. "I don't mean to bother you. I feel like I've seen you before. Did we go to school together? Or?" Her eyes flicked around the store nervously, as if searching for an escape route. "Not here," she whispered. "If you want answers, meet me tomorrow. Riverside Park. 2 o'clock. By the big oak tree." Before I could respond, she left her cart behind and hurried out, leaving me standing there with more questions than ever. That night, I barely slept. My mind churned with possibilities. Who was she? Why did she react to me that way? Why did she want to meet somewhere private? At exactly 2 the next afternoon, I found her sitting under the oak tree, clutching a crumpled tissue in her hands. She looked fragile, as though the weight of years pressed down on her shoulders. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "Thank you for agreeing to explain," I replied, lowering myself onto the bench beside her. "Because honestly, I've been losing my mind trying to figure out how I know you." She stared out at the playground, where children laughed and swung on swings. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then finally, she said, "My name is Kayla Morrison. We went to the same high school. You probably don't remember me. I was quiet, shy. You were popular, busy. We didn't really cross paths." I frowned, searching my memory. The name stirred something faint, but no clear image. "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't." "After high school, we both ended up back in town," she continued. "That's when we met. At Jasmine's birthday party. About 15 years ago. We talked for an hour. About books, about our dreams, about what we wanted in life. You told me you wanted to start your own business someday. I told you I wanted to work with children." Her voice shook. "I fell in love with you that night." My breath caught. "I don't, Kayla, I don't remember." "You don't," she said bitterly. "Because 2 weeks later, I saw the announcement in the paper. You were engaged to Kesha Thompson." The world tilted. Kayla looked at me, tears brimming in her eyes. You don't remember because Kesha made sure you didn't. 3 days after that party, she showed up at my apartment. She told me you'd asked her to talk to me. She said you didn't want to hurt my feelings, but that you were already in love with someone else. That you wouldn't be calling me. My stomach turned to stone. She told you that? She made it sound so kind, so sympathetic, like you were sparing me pain. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was your girlfriend. Your fiancée. She knew where I lived. I thought it was the truth. I sat back, stunned. Even before we married, Kesha had been manipulating my life, cutting off paths I never even knew existed. But Kayla wasn't finished. 2 years later, she said, her voice breaking, she came to me again. But this time, she wanted something else. She said you were trying to have children, but that she had medical issues with her eggs. She offered me $10,000 to donate mine for an in vitro procedure. The world stopped spinning. My ears rang. What did you just say? She took a shaky breath. Malcolm. Jaden is my biological son. I stood abruptly, pacing away, then back again. That's impossible. Kesha carried him. Yes, Kayla interrupted. She carried him. But she used my eggs. She tricked me into thinking it was an anonymous donation. I thought I was helping a couple have a baby. I didn't know she planned to use them herself, with your genetic material. I didn't know until it was too late. My chest constricted, every breath shallow. Jaden. My boy. My son. My entire world. He wasn't just mine and Kesha's. He was mine and Kayla's. I sank back onto the bench, my hands shaking. Why didn't you tell me? Why now? Her tears spilled over. Because she threatened me. She said if I ever came near you, if I ever tried to claim my rights, she'd ruin me. She told me she had connections with the police, that she'd have me arrested for harassment. She even threatened my foster mother, an elderly woman living alone. I was terrified. I took the money and disappeared. But I never stopped thinking about him. About you. I stared at her, trying to piece it together. The years of distance in Kesha's eyes. The strange possessiveness. The constant sense that something about our marriage was built on a lie. And now, the truth sat here in front of me, raw and undeniable. Kayla reached into her bag and pulled out a folded paper. I want a DNA test, she said softly. I need to know for sure. And if it's true. I don't want to take him away from you. I just want to be part of his life. I want him to know the truth. I took the paper with trembling hands. For a long time, I couldn't speak. Then I looked into her eyes, those warm, familiar eyes that I finally understood why they felt so familiar. Because they were Jaden's eyes too. I sat frozen on that bench, Kayla's words ringing in my ears like a church bell that refused to fade. Jaden is my biological son. It sounded impossible, but looking at her eyes, those same warm, deep brown eyes I'd seen in my son since the day he was born, I knew. Some part of me had always known. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice steady. Kayla, if what you're saying is true, then everything I thought I knew about my family, about my marriage, it was all a lie. Her hands twisted the tissue in her lap until it shredded into pieces. That's what Kesha does. She takes truth, bends it, twists it, and makes it her own. I didn't think I'd ever be brave enough to face you. But when I saw you again in that coffee shop, when I saw Jaden standing beside you at the grocery store, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. In the distance, a little boy laughed as he chased a soccer ball across the park. The sound felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Does Jaden know? She asked finally, her voice so soft I almost didn't hear. I shook my head. No. And I don't know how to tell him. He's already been through so much with Kesha's arrest. To throw this on him now, I trailed off, burying my face in my hands. Kayla placed a tentative hand on my arm. That's why I want to do this carefully. I'm not here to rip him out of your life. You're his father. You've raised him, loved him, been there for every moment that mattered. Nothing changes that. But he deserves to know the truth someday. We both do. Her words hit me with a strange mixture of dread and hope. I wasn't losing a son. I might be gaining something else. A new truth. A second chance. But first, I needed proof. The following week was a blur of legal consultations, medical appointments, and nights staring at the ceiling while Jaden slept down the hall. When I finally explained to him that we'd be doing a DNA test, I chose my words with agonizing care. "Buddy," I began, sitting him down at the kitchen table, the new kitchen, not the poisoned one we left behind. "You know how much I love you, right?" He nodded cautiously. "Yeah, Dad. I know. And you know how sometimes life gives us surprises we never expected?" His little brow furrowed. "Like when you found out Mom was bad?" The word bad hung in the air, heavy with a child's attempt to simplify betrayal. I exhaled slowly. "Yes. Like that. But sometimes surprises aren't bad. They're just different. And there's something important we need to check. A test that tells us about family. About where we come from." He tilted his head. "What kind of test?" "A DNA test," I said carefully. "It's a way of looking at our genes. It won't change who we are, or how much I love you. You'll always be my son. But it might tell us something new about your mom, about your past." Jaden's eyes widened. "Is this about that lady from the park? The one you talked to?" The air caught in my lungs. "You saw her?" He nodded. "Yeah. She looked at me like she knew me." "Who is she?" I hesitated, then told him the truth in the simplest words I could manage. "Her name is Kayla. She might be connected to you in a way we didn't know before. The test will tell us for sure." He stared at me, lips pressed tight. Then, to my surprise, he said, "Okay. I want to know." The test itself was quick, just a swab inside the cheek. But the waiting was torture. Every day dragged like a year. Jaden went to school, Jamal kept the business running, and I buried myself in work to keep from obsessing. But every night, I lay awake, replaying Kayla's words, remembering Kesha's smirk, hearing Jaden's small voice asking, "Is this about that lady?" 3 weeks later, the results arrived. I sat at my desk, the envelope in my hands. My fingers trembled as I tore it open, unfolded the papers, scanned the lines. There it was. The confirmation I dreaded and longed for all at once. Probability of maternity, 99.99%. Kayla was Jaden's biological mother. My breath shuddered out of me, the paper slipping from my fingers. The room spun, not with shock, but with the weight of truth settling into place. It wasn't speculation anymore. It wasn't a maybe. It was fact. That night, I sat Jaden down again. My throat was dry, but I forced the words out. "Buddy, the results came back. And they confirmed what we thought. Kayla, the woman you saw, she's your biological mother." He blinked, absorbing the words. Then, slowly, "But I already had a mom." "Yes," I said softly. "Kesha carried you. She raised you. But she lied about something very important. She used Kayla's eggs, without telling either of us the truth. That makes Kayla your birth mother. She's part of you, just like I am." His lips quivered. "Does that mean Mom isn't?" "Mom?" I pulled him into my arms, holding him tight. It means you were loved by someone you never even got to know. And now you have the chance to know her. But nothing changes the fact that I'm your dad. That I'll always be your dad." For a long moment, he was silent, his small body trembling against mine. Then he whispered, "Can I meet her?" The question pierced me. I'd expected fear, anger, maybe confusion. But his voice held only curiosity. Hope. "Yes," I said finally, pulling back to look into his eyes. "But only if you want to. Only when you're ready." He nodded, his jaw set with a determination that reminded me so much of myself. "I'm ready." The next weekend, I arranged for them to meet at the park. Kayla was already waiting when we arrived, standing nervously under the same oak tree where she'd first told me the truth. When Jaden spotted her, he slowed, gripping my hand tighter. "You don't have to go if you're not ready," I whispered. But he squared his shoulders and walked forward, his small steps carrying the weight of destiny. "Hi," Kayla said softly, kneeling down to his level. Her eyes shimmered with tears. "I'm Kayla. And I've wanted to meet you for a very long time." Jaden studied her, his gaze sharp, assessing. Then, slowly, he asked, "Do you love me?" Kayla's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "More than anything in the world. From the moment I knew you existed, I loved you. Even when I couldn't see you, I loved you." Something in his face softened. Without another word, he stepped forward and hugged her. Watching them, my heart broke and healed at the same time. In that embrace, I saw everything Kesha had stolen from us, and everything she couldn't take away. When Jaden pulled back, he asked her, "Can I call you Kayla? For now?" Her smile trembled, radiant through tears. "Of course. Whatever makes you comfortable." I stood a few feet away, my chest tight, tears burning in my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt something like hope. But I also knew this was only the beginning. Because while the truth had finally come to light, Kesha's shadow still loomed over us. And the deeper I dug into Kayla's past, the more I realized Kesha's lies ran far deeper than even I had imagined. That hug between Jaden and Kayla stayed etched in my memory like a photograph burned into my mind. For years I had lived with shadows, half-truths, and betrayal. But here, in that moment, I saw something pure, a child reclaiming a part of his life he never knew was missing, and a mother finally holding the son she had been denied. Still, even as my heart swelled, I knew this fragile happiness balanced on a razor's edge. Kesha's lies weren't simple. They were layers of manipulation, deceit woven so tightly into the fabric of our lives that pulling one thread meant unraveling the entire cloth. And the unraveling had only just begun. A week after that meeting in the park, my phone rang. It was Detective Terrence, the same man who'd cuffed Kesha and Darnell in front of my investors. "Malcolm," he said in that no-nonsense tone of his. "You have a minute?" "Always," I replied, my stomach already tightening. He sighed. "I've been digging into your ex-wife's activities before the fraud case. There's more here than we thought." "What do you mean?" "Do you remember the clinic where Jaden was conceived?" The question hit me like a sucker punch. Of course. It wasn't exactly a warm experience, but I remember Kesha insisted it was necessary. She said her doctor recommended it. "Yeah, about that," Terrence paused. "The clinic doesn't exist anymore. It was shut down 8 years ago, for operating without proper licensing, performing unauthorized fertility treatments, and falsifying medical records." I felt the blood drain from my face. "You're saying?" "I'm saying your wife knew exactly what she was doing. She sought out that clinic because it was illegal, because they'd do what legitimate doctors wouldn't. And we found records, Malcolm. Records showing that Kesha paid under the table for procedures that involved Kayla Morrison's genetic material." The room spun. The truth I thought I was just beginning to understand suddenly grew darker, wider. "Wait," Are you saying Kayla was coerced? That's exactly what I'm saying. We interviewed a former nurse from the clinic. She remembered Kayla. She said she looked scared, confused, but signed the paperwork after a family friend promised it was just a donation. That family friend was Kesha. I gripped the phone so hard it creaked. She tricked her. She tricked all of us. Not just you, Terrence said grimly. There are at least 3 other cases we've uncovered. Young women, vulnerable, manipulated into donating eggs under false pretenses. Their biological children are out there, being raised by people who bought into Kesha's scheme. She wasn't just desperate for a child, Malcolm. She was part of something bigger. The word struck me cold. My ex-wife, my son's mother, had been involved in a black market fertility operation. What happens now? I asked, my voice raw. The DA's office is preparing additional charges. Fraud, conspiracy, medical malpractice. But here's the thing, they're going to need Kayla's testimony. She's one of the key victims. Without her, the case against the wider network falls apart. I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers against the bridge of my nose. Kayla had already been through so much. She'd lived in silence for a decade, terrified and alone. Now I was going to have to ask her to relive it all in court. That night, I invited Kayla over after Jaden had gone to bed. We sat at the dining table, the weight of the day pressing between us. Terrence called me, I began. They uncovered more about the clinic. About Kesha's involvement. Kayla's face went pale. I knew it. I knew she wasn't just some desperate wife. She was too calm about it all, too confident. I reached across the table, taking her hand. They need your testimony, Kayla. You're not the only one. Other women were tricked too. But without you, it'll be harder to prove. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't want to relive it, Malcolm. Do you know what it's like to feel like your child was stolen? To spend years wondering if he was safe, if he was loved, if he even knew I existed? And now to stand in front of a courtroom and tell strangers how I was manipulated, her voice broke. I know, I said softly. But think about those other women. Think about the children who might never know the truth. If you speak up, you won't just be fighting for yourself, you'll be fighting for them too. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling. For a long time, I thought she would refuse. Then, slowly, she lowered her hands and looked at me. I'll do it, she whispered. For Jaden. For the others. I won't let Kesha keep winning. The trial that followed was even uglier than the first. Kayla sat on the witness stand, her voice steady despite the tears that slipped down her cheeks. She described the night Kesha came to her apartment, the promises, the threats, the lies. She described walking into that shady clinic, the way the doctor avoided eye contact, the way the nurse whispered that she was doing a good thing. But the most powerful moment came when she looked directly at the jury and said, for 10 years, I lived without my son. Not because I didn't want him, but because a woman decided my love didn't matter. Because she believed lies and threats could erase me. But they didn't. And they won't erase the others either. The courtroom was silent. Other women came forward too, emboldened by Kayla's courage. Their stories were eerily similar: intimidation, deception, and stolen motherhood. Piece by piece, the prosecution built their case. And when it was over, the gavel came down hard. Kesha's original sentence was extended to 15 years. Darnell, tied not only to the fraud but to the illegal clinic's financial dealings, received 12. The clinic's former operators were indicted on multiple charges. Justice, finally, was being served. After the verdict, Kayla and I walked out of the courthouse hand in hand. Jaden ran up to us, his backpack bouncing, his face lit with relief. Did we win? He asked. I crouched down, pulling him into a hug. Yes, buddy. We won. The truth won. Kayla knelt beside me, tears in her eyes as she kissed the top of his head. You're safe now. And so are others like you. He looked between us, then asked, does this mean we can be a family now? The question hit me like a flood. I glanced at Kayla, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of betrayal pressing me down. Instead, I felt something else, possibility. Yes, I said firmly, holding him close. We can be a family. And as the sun dipped low over the courthouse steps, I realized that sometimes the only way to escape the shadow of betrayal is to step fully into the light of truth. But deep down, I also knew this wasn't the end. Because healing wasn't just about exposing lies in a courtroom. It was about rebuilding trust, piece by piece, day by day. And the hardest part, telling Jaden what it meant to have two mothers, one who betrayed him and one who fought for him, still lay ahead. When the courtroom doors closed behind us, the noise of the trial seemed to fade into the distance, replaced by something heavier, silence. The kind of silence that follows storms, when the wind dies down but the destruction remains. Kesha was gone, sentenced to 15 years. Darnell was locked away too. The clinic operators would never exploit another vulnerable woman again. On paper, justice had been served. But justice doesn't stitch up wounds. It doesn't erase memories. It doesn't quiet the questions a 10-year-old boy asks when the only mother he's ever known is dragged away in handcuffs, and another woman, a stranger who looks at him with love he doesn't understand, steps into her place. That was the silence we carried home with us. The first weeks after the trial were tentative, fragile. Kayla began visiting more often, spending afternoons with Jaden after school. At first, he hovered near me whenever she came, like he was afraid I might disappear if he left my side. But Kayla was patient. She never pushed. She asked him about his favorite books, helped him with math homework, even joined us in the backyard for basketball, though she laughed when she missed every shot. Guess I should stick to teaching instead of sports, she joked, and Jaden giggled, the first time I'd heard him laugh freely in weeks. It was a small moment, but it cracked open a door. One evening, after she left, Jaden asked me, Dad, is it okay if I like her? The question pierced me. Of course it's okay. Why wouldn't it be? He shrugged, staring at his shoes. Because if I like her, does that mean I don't love Mom anymore? I knelt in front of him, my chest aching. Son, love doesn't work that way. You can love Kayla and still love Kesha. The difference is, Kayla is here now, and she wants to be part of your life. That doesn't erase your feelings for your mom. His eyes filled with tears. But Mom tried to hurt you. She lied to me. She lied about everything. How can I still love her? I pulled him into my arms. Because she's your mom. And no matter what she did, she'll always be part of you. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. And it's okay to still love her, even if you don't understand why. He clung to me, silent, his little body trembling. That was the moment I realized that rebuilding wouldn't just be about Kayla stepping in or me holding us together. It would be about helping Jaden navigate the impossible, carrying love for a mother who betrayed him while opening his heart to the one who was stolen from him. Over time, Kayla and I grew closer, too. Not just because of Jaden, though he was the thread that tied us. There was something deeper, something we'd both felt years ago but never had the chance to explore. One night, after Jaden had gone to bed, Kayla stayed behind to help me clean up dinner. As she dried dishes, she glanced at me. Do you ever wonder, she asked softly, what would have happened if Kesha hadn't interfered all those years ago? If you had called me after that party? I set down the plate I was washing, staring at the soapy water. All the time. I wonder what our life would have looked like. If Jaden would have grown up with us from the start. If you and I would have been together. Her voice trembled. I loved you back then, Malcolm. Even after one conversation. And I never stopped. I turned, drying my hands. She stood there, her eyes shimmering with a mix of fear and hope. I don't want to rush you, she whispered. I know you're still healing. But I need you to know. I'm not here just because of Jaden. I'm here because of you. The air between us crackled. Slowly, I stepped closer, my hand brushing hers. Kayla, I don't want to live in the past anymore. I want to build something real. With you. Her breath hitched, and before I could second-guess myself, I kissed her. It wasn't desperate, like the kisses I'd once shared with Kesha, fueled by lust and illusion. It was steady. Certain. The kiss of two people who had walked through fire and still found each other on the other side. When we pulled apart, she whispered, we've wasted enough years. I held her close. Then let's not waste any more. Introducing Kayla to our lives full-time wasn't simple. There were awkward moments, bumps in the road. Jaden sometimes pulled away, confused and overwhelmed. At school, whispers followed him, kids repeating things they overheard from their parents about the scandal, the trial, the news stories. One afternoon, he came home, slammed his backpack down, and shouted, why couldn't we just be normal? I sat beside him on the couch. Normal doesn't exist, Jaden. Every family has its struggles. Ours are just, louder than most. Tears burned in his eyes. They said my mom's in prison. They laughed at me. I clenched my fists, fury boiling, but I kept my voice calm. You know what you tell them? You tell them your mom made mistakes, but your dad and Kayla love you enough to tell you the truth. You tell them you're stronger than they'll ever understand. Because you are. He sniffled, wiping his eyes. Do you really think I'm strong? I hugged him tightly. Stronger than me. Stronger than both of us. That night, when Kayla tucked him into bed, I overheard him whisper, good night, Kayla. I'm glad you're here. And for the first time, she cried tears of joy instead of sorrow. As months passed, we began to carve out a new rhythm. Kayla moved into our home slowly, first a drawer in the dresser, then a toothbrush in the bathroom, until finally she was there every morning when Jaden woke up. I watched them grow closer, their bond forming naturally. She helped him with school projects, attended his soccer games, sat with him when nightmares woke him. And slowly, the walls around his heart came down. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Jaden looked up from his plate and said casually, can I call you Mom? Kayla froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. Only if you want to, she said softly, her eyes glistening. I do, he said firmly. Because that's what you are. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Then yes. You can. I watched them, my chest tight with a mix of grief and gratitude. For everything we had lost, and everything we were finally gaining. But life has a way of testing you just when you think you've found your footing. 6 months later, my phone rang again. It was Detective Terrence. Malcolm, he said, his voice heavy. I need you to prepare yourself. We've uncovered something else. Something about Kesha. And it directly affects you and Jaden. My grip tightened on the phone. What now? He exhaled slowly. Identity theft. Medical fraud. Conspiracy. Records showing Kesha didn't just manipulate Kayla, she was involved in a wider scheme. Selling information from that clinic. Threatening other women. Using their genetic material for profit. My knees buckled, and I sank into a chair. You're telling me Jaden wasn't the only one? I'm telling you, Terrence said grimly, your ex-wife wasn't just a manipulator. She was part of an operation that destroyed families. And we need you and Kayla to help bring it all to light. I hung up the phone, my mind spinning. I looked across the table at Kayla and Jaden, laughing together as they played a board game. And I knew the storm wasn't over. Not yet. The air outside the courthouse was heavy with tension. Reporters crowded the steps, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward, shouting questions like arrows. "Mr. Green. Is it true your wife tried to frame you? Do you have a comment on the forged documents? Who's the mysterious insider that exposed everything?" I shielded Jaden with my arm, keeping him close as we pushed through the chaos. My lawyer flanked my other side, his voice stern and commanding, "No comment. Step aside." But the truth was already spilling into the world. People had seen the evidence. Darnell's smug face was plastered on every news station, caught red-handed admitting to orchestrating fraud on a phone recording. And Kesha? Her name was whispered like a curse, her betrayal too outrageous for most to comprehend. For me, though, the pain was still raw. She wasn't just my wife, she was the woman I once trusted with my heart, my home, my dreams. And she had tried to burn it all to the ground. When we finally slipped into the black sedan waiting at the curb, Jaden let out a shaky breath. "Dad," he whispered, "are we safe now?" I looked into his eyes, wide, innocent, yet burdened with truths no child should carry. "Not yet, son," I admitted softly. "But soon. I promise you, soon." That night, as I sat alone in the silence of my apartment, I stared at the divorce papers lying on the table. My hand trembled slightly as I signed my name. Each stroke of the pen felt like cutting away a piece of my soul. But it had to be done. Kesha had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. When I finished, I folded the papers and placed them neatly into the envelope. For the first time in months, my heart felt lighter. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. I opened it. "You think it's over? You don't know Kesha like I do. She doesn't lose. Watch your back." My breath caught. My fingers clenched around the phone. This wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The next day, my lawyer revealed something that sent a chill through me. "Malcolm," he said, leaning forward across his desk, "we discovered that Kesha transferred nearly $200,000 to an offshore account 3 weeks ago. She's been preparing for this fallout. My guess? She won't stop until she drags you down with her. 200,000. Money I didn't even know existed." "How?" I asked, my voice tight. "She's been funneling it through shell companies. Darnell helped set them up." My hands tightened into fists. Every time I thought I'd reached the bottom of her betrayal, I found another layer. But if she wanted war, then war she would have. That evening, as Jaden sat at the kitchen table drawing quietly, I crouched down beside him. "Son," I said gently, "you've been very brave. You told me the truth when it mattered most. And because of you, I was able to stop them." He looked up, his eyes shining with pride but also fear. "But what if Mom comes back?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Then we'll face her. Together. But this time, we won't be the ones caught off guard. Do you understand?" He nodded, and for the first time in weeks, he smiled. It was small. Fragile. But it was hope. Still, that night, long after Jaden was asleep, I sat by the window staring at the city lights. Kesha was out there. Somewhere. Planning. Scheming. And the message replayed in my mind like a drumbeat. She doesn't lose. The problem was, neither did I. 3 days passed in uneasy quiet. No news of Kesha, no sightings, no phone calls. Just silence, the kind that hums like electricity in the walls, waiting to snap. I wanted to believe she had run away, that the divorce papers and public disgrace had driven her to hide. But deep down, I knew better. Kesha didn't hide. She regrouped. She plotted. That truth revealed itself one cold evening as I pulled into the underground garage of my building. The motion sensor lights flickered on, casting sharp shadows. I stepped out of the car, weary from another meeting with lawyers, only to find something taped to the driver's side door. A photo. My blood turned to ice. It was a picture of Jaden walking home from school, his backpack slung over his shoulder, his smile innocent. Across the photo, scrawled in bold red marker, were the words, "You can't protect him forever." My knees nearly buckled. The paper crumpled in my fist as I spun around, scanning the garage. Empty. Silent. But my instincts screamed that eyes were watching. That night, sleep became a stranger. I sat awake, shotgun across my lap, staring at the door while Jaden slept peacefully in the next room. My mind was a storm of fury and fear. Kesha had crossed a line. She wasn't just coming for me anymore, she was threatening my son. The next morning, I marched into my lawyer's office with the photo. His jaw tightened as he looked it over. "This isn't just a custody battle anymore," he said grimly. "This is criminal intimidation. We can press charges. Will it stop her?" I demanded. He didn't answer. That silence told me everything I needed to know. Later that day, I got a call I wasn't expecting, from one of Darnell's former associates. "Listen," the voice said, hushed and urgent, "I don't want trouble, but you need to know something. Kesha's not finished. She's been digging up dirt on you, real or fake, doesn't matter. She plans to use it to destroy your reputation before the custody ruling. If she can't have your money, she'll take your name." My chest tightened. I didn't even know the man's name, but I could hear the fear in his voice. Fear of Kesha. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the darkened window. Was this who she had become? The woman I once kissed goodnight, the mother of my child, reduced to a predator in the shadows. Or had she always been this way, and I had simply refused to see it? That evening, I sat across from Jaden at the dinner table. He was telling me about his art project at school, his small hands smudged with green and blue paint. I tried to smile, tried to nod, but my mind kept circling back to that photo. He noticed. Kids always notice. "Dad," he asked softly, "you're worried again, aren't you?" I hesitated, then leaned forward. "Jaden, there are people who want to hurt us. But I promise you this, they won't win. Do you believe me?" His eyes met mine, trusting, wide, unshakably pure. He nodded. "I believe you, Dad." And in that moment, I knew I couldn't let fear rule me. Kesha wanted me cornered, broken, desperate. I couldn't give her that satisfaction. No. If she wanted a war, then I would fight it on my terms. So I made a call. Not to my lawyer. Not to the police. But to someone else, someone who owed me a favor. When the line connected, a deep voice answered. "Malcolm. Been a long time. You ready to cash it in?" "Yes," I said, my voice like steel. "I need eyes on Kesha. I need everything, where she sleeps, who she meets, how she moves. If she thinks she's the hunter," I paused, my fists tightening. "Then it's time she learns she's the prey." The call I made that night was more than a plea for help, it was the first move in a counterattack. Malcolm didn't believe in waiting for rescue, he believed in striking first, striking hard. Within 48 hours, the favor I had cashed in bore fruit. A flash drive arrived in a plain envelope slipped under my office door. No return address, no note, just the faint smell of cigarette smoke clinging to the paper. Inside were surveillance photos, recordings, bank transactions, a window into Kesha's secret life. And what I saw shook me. Kesha hadn't just been plotting against me. She had been living a double existence for years. There were images of her meeting with shady men in diners at midnight. Receipts for wire transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands. A recording of her voice, cold and commanding, arranging deliveries that didn't sound like legal goods. And then came the bombshell. An unmarked folder on the drive labeled simply, Children's Fund. Inside were documents, doctored school donation forms, falsified charity reports, and evidence that Kesha had siphoned thousands of dollars from foundations meant to help underprivileged kids. She wasn't just coming after my son's future, she had been stealing from dozens of children for years. My stomach twisted in rage. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was evil. That night, I sat at my desk, hands trembling as I flipped through the files. A part of me wanted to storm into her apartment, shove the papers in her face, and scream. But another part of me, the part that had been forged through sleepless nights and endless humiliation, knew better. Kesha thrived on chaos. If I confronted her directly, she'd twist it, turn me into the aggressor. No, I needed patience. I needed precision. For once, I needed to become colder than her. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. At the next custody hearing, Kesha walked in with her usual venomous smile, draped in designer black, looking every inch the grieving mother forced to endure a cruel husband. She even dabbed fake tears as she whispered to her lawyer. I kept my expression neutral, but inside, I was fire and ice all at once. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I simply slid a manila folder across the table to the judge. Your Honor, I said evenly, this is evidence my legal team obtained just this week. I believe it will shed light on my wife's true character. The judge frowned, opened the folder, and silence fell over the room like a thunderclap. There it was, the falsified charity documents, the siphoned bank transfers, even photographs of Kesha mid-exchange with known criminals. Her lawyer's face drained of color. Kesha's mask cracked for the first time. She lunged for the folder, but the bailiff's hand stopped her cold. Where did you get this? She hissed, her voice shrill, panic leaking through. Doesn't matter, I said calmly, my eyes never leaving hers. What matters is the truth. And the truth always comes out. For the first time since this nightmare began, the power shifted. The courtroom wasn't looking at me with suspicion anymore. Every eye, judge, lawyers, even the bailiff, was fixed on Kesha. And in that silence, I realized something. She wasn't unstoppable. She wasn't untouchable. She was cornered. That night, I watched Jaden sleep, the rise and fall of his chest steady and peaceful. For the first time in months, I allowed myself a small, tired smile. But even as I exhaled, a whisper at the back of my mind reminded me. Cornered animals don't surrender. They lash out. They get dangerous. And Kesha, she was more dangerous than ever. The fallout from the courtroom revelation spread like wildfire. By the next morning, Kesha's lawyer had filed a motion to withdraw from her case. The judge ordered an immediate investigation into the charity fraud. And whispers followed her everywhere, neighbors turned their heads, old friends stopped answering her calls, even her employers grew distant. But as I feared, she didn't retreat. She escalated. It started with the phone calls. At first, just heavy breathing. Then muffled laughter. Then a voice changer crackling through the line. You think you've won, Malcolm? You've only lit the fuse. I hung up, but the words clung to me like smoke. Days later, Jaden came home from school shaken. Dad, he whispered, a woman came up to me by the gate. She said she knew you. She tried to give me candy. When I said no, she grabbed my arm. My blood went cold. Who was it? I asked, my voice trembling. He hesitated, then said softly, she looked like Mom. I locked the doors that night. Double-checked every window. The house became a fortress, but I could still feel her outside, circling like a wolf. Then came the breaking point. One evening, as Jaden and I returned from the grocery store, I noticed the back door ajar. I told Jaden to stay behind me and stepped inside. The living room was dark, silent. Too silent. And then I saw it. Spray painted across the wall in jagged red letters. He's mine. On the coffee table lay one of Jaden's stuffed animals, gutted, its stuffing spilling out like entrails. Jaden's small hand slipped into mine. His voice cracked. "Dad. I'm scared." So was I. I called the police. They took photos, filed a report, promised patrol cars would keep an eye out. But deep down, I knew the system couldn't protect us from Kesha. She had slipped past rules and laws for years. She wasn't just a criminal, she was a predator. That night, as I lay awake with Jaden curled beside me, I made a decision. I couldn't just defend anymore. I had to end this. The very next morning, I arranged for Jaden to stay with my sister in another state, far out of Kesha's reach. He cried when I told him, begged me not to leave him, but I forced myself to smile and promise, "This is just for a little while, buddy. Dad has something he needs to finish." When I kissed his forehead goodbye, a piece of me shattered. But I knew it was the only way to keep him safe. Because the next time Kesha came for us, I wouldn't be calling the police. I would be waiting. That night, I sat alone in the living room, lights off, heart steady. Every creak of the house felt amplified, every gust of wind like a warning. And then, the back door handle turned. Slowly. Deliberately. A shadow slipped into the house. Kesha. Her eyes burned wild in the moonlight as she crept toward Jaden's empty bedroom, clutching something metallic in her hand. A knife. I stepped out of the darkness. "Looking for him?" I asked, my voice low and sharp. She froze. Her face twisted, lips peeling back in a snarl. "Where is he?" she hissed. "Far from you," I said. "You'll never touch him again." And for the first time, I saw it clearly, the madness, the desperation, the realization that she was losing everything. Kesha lunged. And in that instant, I knew, one of us wasn't walking away untouched. She lunged with the knife, a blur of rage and desperation, her scream echoing off the walls. I stepped sideways just in time, grabbing her wrist with both hands. The blade scraped across my arm, burning like fire, but I didn't let go. "You ruined me!" Kesha shrieked, her breath hot and sour, her eyes wild with madness. "He was supposed to be mine. My son, my legacy, you stole him. You abandoned him." I roared back, forcing her wrist down toward the floor. The knife clattered out of her grip, skidding across the hardwood. But Kesha wasn't done. She slammed her forehead into mine, the impact sending stars through my vision. My grip loosened just long enough for her to shove me backward, sending me crashing into the coffee table. Wood splintered beneath me, shards digging into my side. She scrambled for the knife. I staggered up, blood dripping down my temple, my chest heaving. In that moment, everything slowed, every memory of Jaden flashed before me. His first steps. His laughter. The night he whispered, "Dad, I'm scared." I couldn't let her near him ever again. So when she raised the knife, screaming like a cornered animal, I charged. We collided hard, both of us crashing into the wall. The knife pressed dangerously close to my throat, her hand shaking with fury. I grabbed her wrist again, straining with every ounce of strength left in me. Her face twisted into something inhuman. "You'll never keep him from me," she spat. And that was when I realized, this wasn't about love. It never had been. It was about control. About ownership. Kesha didn't see Jaden as her son. She saw him as her possession. Rage surged through me. With a roar, I wrenched her arm sideways. The knife dropped once more, clanging against the floor. Kesha shrieked, clawing at my face, her nails digging bloody lines into my skin. I shoved her off, gasping for breath. She scrambled for the blade again. But this time, I was faster. I kicked it across the room, sending it sliding under the couch. Kesha spun back toward me, chest heaving, hair wild, eyes blazing with hatred. For a moment, we stood there, two broken people, bound by years of betrayal, facing each other like enemies on a battlefield. And then she snapped. She lunged bare-handed, screaming, "I'll kill you." I caught her mid-charge, slamming her to the ground. My knee pinned her arm, my hand pressing her shoulder down as she thrashed and screamed beneath me. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice breaking. "It's over, Kesha. You've lost." But she only laughed, a chilling, broken sound. "You think this ends with me?" she hissed through gritted teeth. "You have no idea what's coming." The word sent a shiver down my spine. Because even as I held her there, blood dripping, my muscles shaking, I realized, she wasn't bluffing. She had something else planned. Something worse. And whatever it wasn't just aimed at me. It was aimed at Jaden. That night, as the police dragged her out of my home screaming obscenities, I couldn't shake her final words. "You have no idea what's coming." And I knew, the war wasn't over yet. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel safe. Not anymore. The police had taken Kesha away, her wrists cuffed, her eyes burning with promises of vengeance. I sat on the couch, Jaden curled up against me, his small body trembling. My arm was bandaged, my face cut, but none of that pain mattered. What mattered was the way Jaden whispered, "Dad, is she gone forever?" I wanted to tell him yes. I wanted to promise him she'd never hurt him again. But those last words, the venom in her voice as she spat, "You have no idea what's coming," echoed in my skull. And I couldn't lie. "I don't know, son," I whispered, pressing my lips to his forehead. "But whatever comes, we'll face it together. I promise." For a few days, peace returned. Or at least, the illusion of it. I went back to work. Jaden started smiling again. We ate dinner at the kitchen table, just the two of us, the silence slowly filling with laughter. But then, little things started happening. The mailbox stuffed with unsigned letters. Words scrawled in jagged handwriting, "You can't protect him forever." Phone calls that came at 2 or 3 in the morning, the line silent except for faint breathing. And once, when I picked Jaden up from school, his teacher told me. Someone called earlier, pretending to be his mother. Said she was coming to take him home. My stomach dropped. I went straight to the police. They assured me Kesha was still locked up, awaiting trial for assault and trespassing. "It's probably just a sick prank," the officer said. "We'll keep a watch, but don't panic. Don't panic." But how could I not, when I knew Kesha? She didn't need freedom to reach us. She had money. She had friends. And she had a hatred that burned like wildfire. That night, as I checked the locks for the 5th time, Jaden asked me something that froze my blood. "Dad, what if Mommy sends someone else to take me?" I looked at him, his wide innocent eyes searching mine, and I realized, Kesha wasn't fighting for custody anymore. She was fighting for possession. And if she couldn't win in court, she would try to win by force. The next evening proved me right. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, when headlights flashed across the window. Too slow, too deliberate. Not a neighbor. Not a delivery. My gut twisted. I crept to the front door, peering through the blinds. A black SUV sat idling across the street. Tinted windows. No license plate. And in the faint glow of the streetlight, I saw a figure in the driver's seat, watching my house. Watching us. That's when I knew Kesha's final plan had begun. And this time, it wasn't just about threats. It was about taking Jaden. The SUV sat there for what felt like hours, its engine purring low, headlights cutting across my yard like a predator's eyes. I told Jaden to stay upstairs, his favorite comic books clutched tight in his hands, and tried to act like everything was normal. But my palms sweated, my chest pounded. This wasn't paranoia. This was Kesha's move. I picked up the phone and dialed 911. My voice was steady, but every nerve in me was screaming. There's a suspicious vehicle outside my home. No plates. Tinted windows. Please, send someone fast. The dispatcher said officers were on the way. But then, the SUV door opened. Two men stepped out. Big. Broad. Faces hidden under caps. They moved with purpose, not even glancing at neighbors' houses. Their eyes were locked on mine. I felt it then, raw fear. Not for me. For Jaden. I grabbed the baseball bat from behind the door. My hands trembled, but my resolve was steel. I would not let them near my boy. They came up the driveway fast, one of them pulling something from his jacket. A crowbar. He banged it against my front door. Open up. You know why we're here. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The other shouted, she wants her son back. Hand him over, and this ends easy. Her son. Kesha's voice behind their words. I gripped the bat tighter, fury boiling past my fear. If you step into this house, you'll never step back out. The door rattled as they tried forcing it. I braced myself. And then, sirens. Flashing blue lights cut down the street like salvation. The men cursed, bolted back to the SUV, and sped off into the night before the cruisers even turned into my driveway. I collapsed to the floor, bat still clutched, chest heaving like I'd just fought for my life. Because I had. The police searched. They found the SUV abandoned 3 blocks away. No prints. No names. No ties to anyone. But I didn't need evidence. I knew who had sent them. Kesha. Even behind bars, she was reaching for Jaden with claws sharpened by obsession. In court weeks later, her crimes stacked up like stones: assault, trespassing, solicitation of violence. Her smugness had vanished, replaced with a hollow emptiness as the judge sentenced her to years behind bars with no contact allowed. I sat in the gallery, Jaden beside me, his small hand gripping mine. When the gavel fell, he whispered, "She can't come back now, right?" I finally looked him in the eyes and answered with the truth he deserved. "No, son. She's gone. And she's never coming near you again." That night, for the first time in months, I slept without fear. When morning light poured into our home, Jaden and I ate breakfast together, laughter bubbling freely between us. The scars on my arm would fade. The nightmares would lessen. And Kesha, once a storm threatening to rip everything away, was nothing more than a shadow locked behind bars. We had survived. Together. And no matter what came next, I knew one truth that burned brighter than any darkness she tried to drag us into. Jaden was mine to protect. And I had won. In the end, Malcolm's fight wasn't just about winning custody, it was about proving that love and sacrifice can outlast hatred and betrayal. The greatest strength a parent can have isn't wealth or power, but the courage to protect their child at any cost. As the old saying goes, blood may tie us together, but loyalty makes us family. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to True Echo for more powerful stories of justice and resilience. Share your thoughts in the comments below, your voice matters. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, pass it on.